This video is my reaction to the Ravens' 44-10 loss to the Houston Texans at home in Week 5. A truly embarrassing loss that I think really brings things to a head, or a crescendo, if you will, in terms of the pressure on John Harbaugh and our entire organization. I get it that Baltimore came into here with a ton of injuries, right? 4 or 5 rookies starting on defense, no Lamar Jackson. I'll be direct with you. I think we lose this game today even if 100% of the Ravens roster is totally healthy. There's nothing about this Ravens team that looks right to me. Not the way they compete, or the lack thereof at times, I should say. Certainly the defense is the worst in the NFL, no matter who's on the field. Came in allowing 33 points per game in a tough schedule. There's just nothing that Harbaugh will do until he's absolutely forced to. The worst case scenario today, unfortunately, you will not like me saying this, would have been the Ravens winning a game in the 35 to 33 range, where we recognize that the defense is still broken, incapable of performing, no matter who has a helmet on Sunday. But we were to get a win and climb to 2-3. The Texans, I think, are a better football team. I thought that coming into this game. I did a preview of Saturday morning where I basically only focused on the Texans defense and thought that it was pretty obvious we were going to have difficulty blocking them, and that's the way it looked to me. If you want to win in the playoffs, I just don't think this is the team that's going to be able to get it done. Unless we're talking about a parallel universe where a Brian Flores or some offensive-minded guy who actually calls plays can bring a different approach and light a fire under a roster that really doesn't have any. And the reason why I bring up a guy like Brian Flores is they're going to compete defensively no matter who's on the field, and we don't have that right now. You can blame Zach Orr. He's the guy in charge, but I want to aim higher. The pattern of decisions that we've seen in 2024 and 2025 has been subpar. It's below average, inconsistent, whatever you want to call it, just downright mismanagement from John Harbaugh. He's made bets on multiple fronts, and he's wrong on 2, actually at least 3 of them, along with Eric DaCosta in the front office. I want to go over some of that now, and specifically with the Texans game, we got beat up front, offensive and defensive line. Again, I think that's been the story for this season, even dating back to Buffalo, in key or critical moments against the Bills on the road. When we're trying to get yards or trying to get stops on third down, we cannot do so. The defensive line and offensive line doesn't appear to be up to par or up to the assignment. I get it. There's going to be people who think I'm overreacting here. It has to be pointed out, or at least the way that I feel about this team and this game has to be said. Without Lamar, there's teams who execute and get things done with backup quarterbacks. Usually they can rely on something, right? They can rely on the ability to run the offense and get things done. We can't. That's on the offensive line. And so I have to start here. I've been talking about it for over a year, and it sucks to be continuing to talk about it, but I think John Harbaugh is the type of guy that he'll double, triple, and even quadruple down when he's wrong. And he's wrong on Daniel Falele. He's wrong on George Warhop. Most likely wrong on Voorhees. We haven't seen as much of him as we have of Falele, unfortunately. We've seen actual regression from Roger Rosengarten in year 2, in my opinion. We expected poor to average play from the 2 guards. We thought that Rosengarten was going to level up, and I just don't think that he has. Harbaugh has consistently made it obvious that the Ravens organization looks at our interior guards as starting quality, and they are not. They are not consistent. Whose fault is it? It's Harbaugh's, and it's George Warhop. He's been wrong there, and expecting him to change at this point is a mistake on our part. It's a mistake on my part. He won't change. Harbaugh will not give in. He'll stick with this until the end. And it's late. It's late already in 2025. I get it. So many people in the last couple of weeks in comment sections and on social media and even in my Ravens Discord have been, wait until the bye when we'll fix things. Brother, this team is going to be sellers after the bye week. Anyway, point number 2 that Harbaugh is clearly wrong on, and he will not budge, is Zach Orr. It sucks to say it, right? He's a former Raven, had a great playing career, UDFA, unbelievable story. And for it to end in such a terrible manner, and then he ends up coaching here, during the time that we had a magical run on defense in 2023, to have it come to where it is now there's no kind way to say it. We need to change there. It's the same conversation we were having early in 2024. Things got better later in 2024. I think like week 11 to week 18, somewhere in that range. I mean, come on, man. Chuck Smith can say what he wants, and I like Chuck Smith. it was clearly not all Zach Orr, right? Dean Pease had a huge impact being in that building and being at the games on game days, in the up top on the headset with Zach Orr. Things haven't changed. It's only gotten worse, right? We're the worst defense in the NFL, even with our starters on the field, right? Not just today. I'm talking about the totality of the 5 games in 2025. So along the same lines with the O-line, Harbaugh's decision making, and then Zach Orr, continued exposure to subpar teaching will lower the floor and the ceiling of students, of athletes, of people you work with, right? I'm a teacher or a former teacher and coach in a high school setting. We've all seen, whether it's a new boss, a new leader, a new principal in your school, whatever, they come in and it becomes obvious after a couple of weeks they're not up to the standard of what is required for the job. A month later, or 2 months later, whatever, everyone's trying to leave or move on. They're looking for better jobs because this job sucks now. Unfortunately, that situation not only applies to our defense, clearly, but our offensive line coaching as well. I've sat on this perspective for a while. Warhop's in the same boat for me as Zach Orr. He's not good enough to get it done. The only difference is Falele and Voorhees were never talented. They just were never talented, right? And on the defensive side, Zach Orr has so much talent. Anyway, it's going to bring me to my next point, and it's about the Harbaugh-Eric DeCosta combo and their misjudgment of the offensive line. They've been adamant that Falele is our starter, and then now Voorhees as well, although there was apparently a, quote, competition for Voorhees in training camp. And this is not a Ben Cleveland point. I really don't care about Ben Cleveland. He's not up to the standard either. He's the last guard, interior lineman that we drafted, interior guard, I should say, dating back to 2021. Obviously, Tyler Linderbaum is a center. It's about what we value and what we do not. And on days like this where we don't have Lamar Jackson, can we get things generated offensively to control one aspect of the game, or at least exhibit some manner of influence to swing the game in our favor when we have the football? No, we can't do that. We don't have a good enough offensive line. That's an obvious point. We have made miscalculations. We being John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta. That should be obvious. If it's not, you should probably listen to someone else, because I'm going to talk about the same damn thing again in 2025 that I did in 2024. I talked about it last year when we were the second or third highest scoring offense in the league. It's about injuries to certain people. Fine, whatever. How do we think Lamar got sacked 15 times in 4 games? Did something with Lamar change? Is Lamar a different guy? Is Derrick Henry a different guy a year after we had, one of the top 3 offenses in the NFL, record-setting in some indications or some statistical markers? I think, this is my opinion, our consistent ignoring of the interior offensive line has created a roster that's kind of top-heavy on the offensive side. Basically, we cannot perform consistently without Lamar there to run certain concepts, option, phase stuff, whatever, and maybe escape pressure and make things happen. In my opinion, it's poor planning, and it goes back not just to the 2024 draft, even before that. Poor planning. I get it. We drafted Emory Jones this year, and everyone thought, we're going to move him to guard. Well, he played tackle at LSU. The Baltimore Ravens social media site listed him as a tackle when they activated him 6 or 8 or 10 days ago, whatever. Harbaugh has said he's a tackle, unless I'm wrong. We didn't take a guard. Let's backtrack a little bit. We didn't take a guard in the 2024 draft, and I believe we had already lost Zeitler when that draft occurred in 2024. I may be wrong on that point, but in any case, pick number 93 will never settle for me. I think it's 2023 draft. I know we took Saleh and Voorhees late in that draft, round 6 and round 7. We only took Voorhees because he was a flyer. An injury guy who dropped in the draft that we wouldn't have been available to take in a normal situation. We knew he wasn't going to contribute as a rookie at all. Moving back even to 2022, right? We took Linderbaum and then Falele in the 4th round. Keep in mind, Falele was drafted as a tackle, got rotational time. Now he's suddenly a full-time starter at guard. We've ignored the position. We've ignored the interior offensive line. You have to go all the way back to 2023 with Cleveland, like I said, to find a guard that we drafted in the first 3 rounds. Again, the Ravens social media site has indicated that Emory Jones is a tackle. Maybe he's practicing at guard some. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. But it seems to me they're unwilling to invest in the position, and it's come back to haunt us in 2025. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by today's performance, and I'm not surprised by our inability to be consistent on the offensive side, despite having superior position player talent. Basically, I don't think it's a coincidence that Lamar Jackson's down for injury, didn't practice this week at all, sat out this week, probably will or should sit out next week against the Rams in the same season where we can't get Derrick Henry going. Lamar looks pressured when he does play. Maybe sometimes he has to abandon his reads often, unless, like I said earlier, we or you suddenly think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry just aren't that good. Harbaugh is 0 for 2 on these issues. 0 for 3 if you include Warhop as the guy, who stood there in camp and told us that right guard was no competition, rotations don't work, they shouldn't even be discussed, but left guard was up for grabs. Well, Warhop is wrong on both of those accounts. Eric DeCosta, I think, is 0 for 1 here, drafting interior offensive line, basically wasting picks on guys like Teddy Buchanan, Carson Vincent, in a draft that was great and heavy and had a lot of D-tackle depth. We took none until later on, and I like Peebles as a draft pick. Whoever the defensive end, Adisa Isaac, that we took, I think, 2023, he would have been available a round later. Not to mention taking Devin Leary and Rasheen Ali last year. Those are all developmental guys, and that says a lot. That Buchanan's on the field a lot now, and he's a developmental player, in my opinion. Simply put, I think we've been mismanaged from a Harbaugh standpoint, and the draft has been top-heavy. Round 1, round 2, generally been pretty good, but thereafter, we seem to have no direction. This year, what we did in rounds 4 and thereafter, I thought was a colossal mistake, very similar to Adisa Isaac, Devin Leary, Rasheen Ali, guys like that. And I want to make my point clear about injuries. Is it a factor? Sure, yes. But some teams handle adversity. This year's Baltimore Ravens do not. That's a direct reflection on John Harbaugh. He's the guy in charge. He's the guy who has to get the team ready to play. And I have no choice but to make this comparison to you. You will not like it, I'm sure. In 2024, the Lions ended up with 6 season-ending injuries to defensive starters. Well, long-term injuries, I should say. I know you all didn't tune in to hear me talk about Detroit, but Aiden Hutchinson, high-profile injury. Lee McNeil went out with an ACL. Derek Barnes, who was a defensive starter for them last year, and he is, in fact, this year. Carlton Davis III, who made his cameo in Detroit, played actually really well, went out like around week 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that range. Anzalone was out for 7 or 8 weeks, if I recall, and they go 15-2. Anyway, the point is, I think the Ravens have enough talent to compete, and they did not today. They did not compete today. They didn't have the ability to sustain drives because of the offensive line, and the defensive line, whether we had Madubuike on the field or not, doesn't have enough depth. I don't know how the Ravens recover from this in 2025. I'll just be direct with you. Watching this team through 5 weeks, I got zero inclination to say to you they find a way to win 9 or 10 football games. And I could be wrong, right? They certainly do have a weak schedule. There's a lot of winnable games after the bye. But that doesn't mean the issues have been corrected. It just means we're playing teams that suck too. And the Rams don't. And that'll be against a team, I think, that's coming off 9 days of rest after a disappointing loss to the 49ers, who showed up with a lot of injuries and were still able to battle with their backup quarterback, Mac Jones, and get a win. Yes, Baltimore's 1-4 with a tough schedule. They've had a ton of injuries. Lamar was out this week. The Madubuike situation, first of all, is very difficult and disheartening, depending on how it works out in the future. I'm just not on to any of that being an excuse. John Harbaugh's in his 18th year, I think, as the head coach of the Ravens. To me, it should be his last. I can't tell you anything else other than what I think in my own brain. And I kind of had this thought after watching us lose to the Lions the way we did, getting bullied, and then last week against the Chiefs. And I've not moved off that point at all. There's no reason for us to be dealing with the same issues in Week 5 of 2025. Going into Week 6, the same issues for the second year in a row under a head coach who's been here for 18 years. In fact, in some ways, it's the third year in a row, meaning the defense starts off slow and we have offensive line issues. The only difference is, we had Kevin Zeitler in 2023. I think we've got to be reconfigured strategically. I have some thoughts on that globally, and that I'll share, at another time. Basically, a head coach who's a little bit more involved and actually calls plays on one side of the ball because, obviously we know that John Harbaugh generally does not. I think we all knew that something like this was a possibility today. We had no ability to block them up front. I'm sure there'll be defensive of certain guys on this offensive line who appear to be like impervious to criticism. And I mean from the Ravens coaches and even some Ravens fans on social media. It's almost like certain guys have plot armor. And that kind of reminds me of a thought that I had this weekend that I was hoping I wouldn't have to express. Harbaugh has this like protection aspect with certain guys. And I feel like you saw that dynamic this past week with Orr and Monken. I don't think Todd Monken's done a great job recently. I don't. Has it been good enough to win football games? Well, I would say that the offensive line is a factor there, but no, it has not. Zach Orr's been the worst in the league. And so to focus on, even Harbaugh's halftime comments today kind of struck me as wrong. But Orr, Falele, I guess now Voorhees too, they've almost got plot armor. And that kind of mirrors Harbaugh's own situation. He's been untouchable. He was untouchable for a while. It doesn't surprise me that his decisions and the way he talks about them reflect that same dynamic, meaning once you've got the John Harbaugh stamp of approval here in Baltimore, you're untouchable. You've got plot armor, and nothing can be done to pull you from that position. I'm not sure if I'd really call it like projection in a psychological sense, but there's an imbalance at times of job performance over a certain period of time compared to output. And so I want to reflect a little bit on where we were as a franchise from 2015 to 2018. Of course, 2014, we have a 14-point lead, I believe, in New England in the playoffs. Great opportunity to win the game, and unfortunately, we're not able to. 2015, we go 5-11. 2016, 8-8. 2017, 9-7. Didn't make the playoffs either of those 3 years, to my knowledge. 2018, we're 4-5. Maybe it's 3-4, but I think it's 4-5 before Lamar becomes the starter on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. We were in the same place. Actually, we were in a better place than being 4-5. We're 1-4, staring 1-5 in the face. I think the offensive line commitment from the organization has fallen off. The defensive line, Matabike and Travis Jones not being there, clearly that hurts. And Stanley as well, right? There was a great D-tackle draft this past year. We got Peebles a little bit later. There was other guys on the field that I thought could have been an option for us when we took Buchanan and Vincent. And those are, I hope both of those guys have great careers in Baltimore, but I didn't like the picks at all. I think the Ravens standard, and the announcers today were like totally clueless. The Ravens standard for drafting well, having a very good defense at minimum as a floor, and then a punishing or at least consistent run game, that standard to me is over. It's been over for more than just today in 2025. This is just, to me, the chickens coming home to roost from the standpoint of poor drafting after round 2 generally, and then inability to move off of certain players that never really were that talented anyway. The first half was, embarrassing. Gave up 24 points, 6.6 yards per play today. Houston came in averaging 16 points per game. That was 29th in the NFL. C.J. Stroud was 14 of 17 passing, 3 touchdowns. He also had the 30-yard scramble that almost turned into a score. Very few highlights for us at all on the defensive side. Van Noy returned to get a sack, only our 5th of the year. I think Brent Urban had the TFL. C.J. Okoye forced a hold on a 10-yard run by the rookie running back Marks on the second possession. That was the only time Houston didn't score in 4 offensive drives. They outgained us 228-92 in the first half. We were averaging 1.9 yards per carry from Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell. Simply put, we were compromised. Without Lamar, we were compromised. Everyone else on the roster healthy. No Lamar. We probably still are fighting an uphill battle because I think we're capped from an offensive line standpoint. We do not have the ability to generate consistent yards or execute schemes consistently with this offensive line. It's been below average for 2024 and 25. No one can convince me otherwise. I don't care what AQ Shipley says. I don't care what bullshit grading metrics say. You can watch the film and you can see it. Absent people showing me film of us executing high-level combo blocks, pulling both guards and executing kick-out schemes, trapped to either side, and not being totally dependent on out-formationing people and Monken outsmarting them, we were not going to dominate Houston's defense today no matter what. They play fast. They totally shut down the run game and were able to limit us on third downs. This is the second year in a row for me where through 4 or now 5 games, I think we looked lost as a franchise. The only difference is last year we played some bad run defense teams in week 3 and week 4, the Cowboys and the Bills, and we really got Derrick Henry going. It's a totally different dynamic in 2025. Forgive me for not being positive about it all, but I really no longer believe that we are operating as an organization from the pillars, the foundational approaches that we've had in the past. We've strayed too far away from them, in my opinion. And without Lamar out on the field today, we had no chance at all. This is about what I expected. Maybe not 44-10, but I certainly didn't expect the Ravens to be able to beat the Texans today. If we played this game 100 times, I don't know that we win 1 or 2. Purely negative thoughts on my part, so forgive me for that. It's just my immediate reaction to the game. I'll still do film study videos on this game and some of the things that we are doing wrong defensively. There's a lot there. Who knows what it's going to look like on Monday from a Harbaugh and Zach Orr perspective. We seem to be a franchise that moves slow, like the tree ants in the Lord of the Rings trilogies. We don't make a decision quickly. We wait until it's almost too late, and unfortunately in 2025, it probably already is. In any case, I appreciate you guys' time. You're more than welcome to have your own thoughts about it. We all should be emotional and upset for watching our favorite team lose by 34 points at home to a Texans team that came in 1-3. Appreciate you guys' time.